Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2023 Tour Championship Initial Research Show. That's right, we have made it to the finale of the PGA Tour season, the Tour Championship. The top 30 players of the PGA Tour season gather at East Lake for the final event of the PGA Tour season. Looking forward to getting into that this evening. You will notice that my face is real bright red, shining like a Christmas tree. It has been a long day for me personally. Been out in the sun pretty much all day. It was our club championship, or my own home course club championship. So it has been a brutal Sunday for yours truly. To start off the day, my top lineup was in the top 5 of the short game, GPP, the $1 entry short game. It had made its way all the way up to 4th, making a pretty good sum of money. And then Victor Hovland teed off, and everything went downhill from there. I mentioned last week that I was going to take a big chance and fade Victor Hovland. He ends up playing well. I end up losing. But I do have one shout out for the community this week. My friend Dave, who hits the win ticket on Victor Hovland at 16-1. So congratulations, Dave, on your successful hit of Victor Hovland at the BMW Championship. And a reminder, if you had success either in outright wagers or in DFS contests, then let me know in chat, in the comments, or on social media. Would love to be able to shout out more members of the community who have success. Like I said, mine was a big disaster. Was looking great with Scheffler and Fitzpatrick both in the same lineup, in that lineup that had made it all the way up to the top 5. It comes unraveling. Not unlike my play today at the club championship. It was just a brutal day for me personally, but good friend of the show, fellow subscriber, and jumps into chat very often. Hopefully Joey will join us in chat. He made the championship flight today. Didn't play as well as he wanted to, but hopefully he'll join us in chat. Make sure to send your congratulations to him for making it to the championship flight in our local club championship. But we're going to move to East Lake. And as I mentioned, the top 30 players of the PGA Tour season all gather in Atlanta, Georgia, as is customary every year, to determine who the Tour champion is going to be. So let's get into it. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from fantasynational.com. It is the best tool out there for your money. It's going to make you a much smarter golf gambler and a much better golf DFS player. Go check out fantasynational.com. You will not regret it. In the description to the video, there are links to all of the social media. First off, my Twitter, Instagram, or I guess X now, or whatever. I'm still going to say Twitter. F it. Twitter, Instagram, and my Kick. Twitter and Instagram is where I post research for the PGA Tour. That'll be no different. I will have quite a bit of research for you available tomorrow on social media around East Lake, around the handicap or the staggered start, some average scoring for each starting score, if you will, and whatnot. So if you are interested in seeing that research that I've put out every week on the PGA Tour, then give me a follow at your preferred social media site, Twitter or Instagram. Twitter is also where I place my betting cards for the PGA Tour every week. That'll be no different. That'll come out Wednesday evening after the DFS Tactics show. I'm sure I'll have a wager or two for the Tour Championship. So if you want to see the weekly wagers I make on the PGA Tour, give me a follow over at Twitter. And then finally, for Twitter is where I put my baseball content. 3 players that I think will accrue their value, 3 players that I don't. That will pick up in September when I get back from what I'm going to call a vacation. It's really a baseball tournament. But that'll come back in the first week of September. If you're interested in that, give me a follow over Twitter. And then finally, for social media, Gabe's Twitter is in the description. He writes a very good article called The Fringe. Highly suggest you give him a follow and subscribe to that article. It is free to do so, and if you are a subscriber to his article, you're going to be able to join us on Wednesday evenings, starting back up at the Fortinet around DFS plays. He is gracious enough to allow me to join him in his chat, and we continue the DFS talk after calls. So if you want to be a member there and continue the DFS talk on Wednesday evenings, then make sure you are a subscriber to his article. Again, it is free. It's a very good read. It's a great way to start your week of preparation. So go show Gabe some support by following him over at Twitter and subscribing to that article. And then finally, for this intro, we are live. Chat is open. Again, want to hear from you all. If you had success, let me know. Would love to be able to shout you out. Who do you think has the upper hand going to Eastlake? Do you think Scotty Scheffler takes it down this year, starting first? He did so last year, did not end up winning. Do you think he's going to bring the title home? Do you think Rory does it in the second spot? Or do you think somebody from off the pace is going to come back and win the Tour Championship? How much do you know of Eastlake? All of that. So let's do our initial research for the 2023 Tour Championship. And we are going to start over at the GCSAA Tournament Fact Sheet. Good evening, Joey. Mentioned you in the intro. Congratulations on making the championship flight at our local Muni. I know it didn't go as well as you wanted it to today, but still a good accomplishment to make the championship flight. You and I, obviously but some of the community might. We had our qualifying round on Friday. You played very, very well. And then today was just brutal. It was hot. I was tired by, the turn. It was just hot. It was difficult. But congratulations on your success in actual golf, considering you're a good golfer. But congratulations on your success this week and weekend. Hopefully we are ready to have a positive Eastlake or positive Tour Championship at Eastlake. I mentioned on Friday how good my lineup was going. It ends up cratering thanks to Victor Hovland winning the tournament. And I mentioned all last week how I would lose if Victor Hovland played well. He wins, I lose. I was willing to accept that. Can't take all the chalk. But moving to the Tour Championship and Eastlake. We are in Atlanta, Georgia. The biggest thing to note about Eastlake, while it is not a Don Ross original design, he did renovate it in 1913, and it is very much attributed to being a Don Ross design. However, in technicality, Tom Bindelow designed Eastlake in 1904. You can see several renovations over the years, most recently by Reese Jones in 1994, 2008, 2016, and so on. But it is a Don Ross design, and it is labeled as such in Fantasy National, so we are going to be looking at some more Don Ross architect filters this week. Eastlake is a par 70 that measures 7,346 yards. So another long par 70 is what we have on the docket this week, not unlike Olympia Fields, which was a long par 70. The greens are right at average size, depending on what figure you find. I've seen anywhere between 5,500 and 6,000 square feet. Eastlake, average green size is 5,619. Not a lot of fairway, 24 acres of fairway. I would say about average amount of rough. Generally, we find about 90 or so on these GCSAA tournament fact sheets. You have 6 holes with water in play, but we are on Bermuda and pure Bermuda. No POA mix, no anything like that. This is ultra dwarf Bermuda, so I'm not going to be able to tell you the differences between, say, Tiff Eagle and Tiffway Bermuda, but we are on pure Bermuda. They generally run fast. We are on Bermuda throughout most of the course including the rough. The rough is Bermuda, which is important to note, but the fairways are Zoysia. And I talk about Zoysia a little bit. It is a bit more sticky of a grass. It's a little difficult to play out of, or it can be, especially if it's in the rough. Fairway, maybe not so much. But it does play a little bit different. But there's the big notes on East Lake. We are looking at another long par 70. Average size greens, 6 holes with water in play, but probably the biggest filter that we will focus on, at least tonight, is the Don Ross filter, as he is one of the original renovation architects at East Lake. So with that, we're going to move to Fantasy National. And we have 29 of the 30 players set in here. You see the star on Chris Kirk. He did not play well enough at the BMW to continue his season. Chris Kirk falls out of the top 30. Matt Fitzpatrick is the player that is not listed on this page view. And I decided to use this page view as opposed to going to the BMW for a number of reasons. One, I just didn't want to clutter the screen, if you will, with 20 players that are starred and whatnot. I just thought this would be a bit more clean for you as the viewer. If you prefer to see the BMW page view, that way you have Matt Fitzpatrick in here, let me know and I'll change that. But in terms of the players that made it to East Lake this season, we will, of course, sort on strokes gained total. In the last 36 rounds, top performers: Rory, Scotty Scheffler, Tommy, Cantlay, Terrell Hatton, Xander, Rahm, Hovland, Fowler, Clark. There's your top 10. So nothing, not a whole lot to gain there. And the BMW is not in here, so I'm sure Victor Hovland is going to rise a decent amount, not be 8th in terms of strokes gained total in the past 36. One of the first things we can look at is, let's take a look at that Don Ross filter. So on Don Ross Designs, you see that there's not enough rounds for 2023 alone. We have 8 only from Lucas Glover, which would be the Wyndham and the Rocket Mortgage. He gets credit for having his hand on the Rocket Mortgage. So we're going to have to expand this timeline. I'm going to go all the way back to 2019, and that's going to be a theme this week. This entire week is going back all the way to 2019, and I'll explain why when we go to Microsoft Excel. But going back to 2019, on Don Ross Designs, our top performers that have made it to East Lake: Taylor Moore, Russell Henley, Tom Kim, Xander, Sungjae, Victor Hovland, Rory, Terrell Hatton, Max Homa, and Siwoo Kim. This might get updated with Matt Fitzpatrick, who's not on this page view this evening. So there's a look at your top Don Ross Design players. Before we go too much further, let's just go ahead and check the course breakdown in Fantasy National. First thing I like to do when looking at a scorecard: 9th and 10th most difficult holes. If par falls somewhere around there, we're looking at an exactly average difficulty course. Well, fortunately enough for us, the 10th most difficult plays a little bit under par. 9th most difficult plays a little bit over par. So therefore par would fall right in the middle of that. Therefore it would look like it would be it would be right on the average difficulty. I'm going to tell you it leans slightly easier due to the par 5s, which there are only 2 of them, but you see a 4% eagle rate here on the par 5 6th, plays to 6/10 of a shot under par, a great birdie chance. Now the par 5 18th, decent. I mean, it's an okay eagle chance, 2.5%, but it's definitely a birdie hole as well. Plays to just about a half a shot under par. So because of the par 5s, this is going to lean slightly easier. But there are a few difficult holes here. Of course, most difficult 2/10, 1500ths, got 1200s, 1500s, a tenth. So a decent amount of fairly difficult holes. But really, double bogey doesn't come into play too much except for the par 4 eighth, which yields a double bogey at 6%. Otherwise, all of these difficult holes just have their fair share of bogeys. But you also have quite a decent amount of good scoring opportunities here at East Lake. The short par 4 third plays to 1500ths under par. Another 1500ths on the another short par 4 the 12th. 800ths, 1/10. So it would be fairly balanced with the exception of those 2 par 5s. So it's going to lean slightly easier. The length of the course is going to come majority of the time in the par 3s. Par 3 197 is actually the shortest. You've got a 235, a 214, and a 211. So long par 3s. Maybe not necessarily the most difficult, although they are difficult for the course. 10th over par, 10th over par, 10th over par, and the par 3 second place slightly under par. So the par 3s are going to be the most difficult holes on the course, but they're not overly difficult in terms of raw scoring. If we move to the strokes gained by shot type, you see strokes gained approach pretty significant over the others, including the putting. But around the green is fairly close to the off the tee. Again, it might not look it. Don't ignore your y-axis over here. This is only 2/10. So the off the tee is only about a quarter of a shot. Around the green is at 2/10. So not really pulling away from it. We move to the top 5s. Off the tee really does start to distance itself from around the green. And then for our winners, you would expect to be making putts, but you see the emphasis on off the tee for the winners here at East Lake. It is a big factor. And of course, you're going to be making putts if you're winning. So it does lend itself to be a ball striking course majority of the time. We move to strokes gained by hole by par. Pretty even. Again, don't ignore your y-axis. 1/10 here and 500ths here. So the par 5s only get to 1/10 for the top 10s. So fairly even overall. Top 5s, par 4s really start to catch up. And then for the winners, more than likely going to be looking at some eagles on those par 5s that's contributing to that big jump. But of course, we'll go into Microsoft Excel, especially tomorrow, and take a look at some detail around East Lake and where those strokes gained are really going, if there's a particular length of maybe par 5 or par 3 or whatnot. But for this evening, we'll be looking at mainly par 5s. There are only 2 of them, so I don't think they're going to carry too much weight, but they are very, very good scoring chances at East Lake. Hole composition, we have 1 medium length par 3, 2 long par 3s, and 1 extremely long par 3, and that's what I was mentioning when we went through the scorecard. The length of the course really does come into these par 3s. We have 2 short par 4s, 2 very good scoring opportunities to 2 easy par 4s. 4 from 400 to 450, 5 from 450 to 5. We do have 1 long par 4 measuring 500 plus. That would be the par 4 14th measuring 520, the most difficult hole on the course, as you could probably imagine. And then the 2 par 5s, 1 extremely short, 525 I believe, and 1 at 560 something. Now I gotta cheat again. 590. Samsonite, I was way off. Kudos if you get the reference. So 1 short, 525 and 590. So pretty big split there in terms of distance on the 2 par 5s. Driving accuracy, a lot lower here than the average tour event. My guess is that's because this rough is not very difficult to play out of. Unlike what we just saw at the BMW for Olympia Fields and how it got to, I think they said 6-inch thick or long by the end of the week. Generally, Eastlake is maintained at about 2.5 to 3 inches, so not nearly as difficult to play out of, not nearly as long. So I don't think that players mind too much if they're missing the fairway. They just can't find the water off the tee. Green regulation percentage slightly, I mean by the slimmest of margins, slightly less here than the average tour event, which makes sense. It's about an average difficulty course, leaning on the easy side. These greens are right at average for the PGA Tour, so average green and regulation percentage. Scrambling also slightly less successful here than the average tour event, but nothing drastic. 3 putts per round, much less. And again, speaking to the players, not necessarily trying to ignore the fairways at all cost, but certainly distance is much more the factor than fairways, as the distance is much higher here. But proximity much closer than the average tour event by about a good 2.25 or so feet. Interesting to see no proximity chart. And I have to be honest with you, I did not realize that before the show. So if you want to see proximity chart, I will have to do that tomorrow for the data dive. Going into Pro Visualizer, I apologize. Like I said, it's been a long day. I did not realize that they did not have the proximity chart here in Fantasy National. But there's a look at Eastlake in terms of a scorecard and graphical view. We'll go back to the player page view here. We'll bring this back in to this calendar year. Make sure we are on the last 36 rounds. I'll remove the Don Ross filter. Let's take a look at a couple of different things here, I suppose. Let's go ahead and go look at Bermuda putting and see if I need to expand the timeline. Don't think I will. Which reminds me, let's go ahead and bring up the past course conditions. So, speaking to the difficulty of the course, you see last year, 1 round of average, but mostly easy. 2021 was an even split between easy and average. Now, 2019 is the outlier of the years that we're going to look at. We're only going to go back to 2019, and there's a specific reason why, and again, I'll get to that in Microsoft Excel. 2019 is the outlier. It actually played more on the difficult end of average. So 2 rounds of average, 2 rounds of difficult, as you can see. Might be because the wind picked up slightly, it looks like. Because you don't have too many rounds that are windy. In fact, I don't see any that are windy. Mostly just moderate. So this seemingly could have been on the higher end of moderate. But greens have always been Bermuda. The rough actually did get to classified as long last year. Generally, it's been average in length, and that's also contributing to the fact that players don't seem to mind being in the rough. They're just hitting driver, and as long as they're not so wayward they're finding water, it's all right. The green speeds, what I really wanted to look at, have been different between lightning and fast. In fact, last year, and a couple of rounds in 2021 were the first rounds that were fast. They had all been lightning, but I think there's enough there that we need to include both. So let's do fast and lightning Bermuda. I'll see if there's enough rounds in this calendar year. I might need to go into 2022. No, 36 is fine. Now, you'll just have to understand John Rahm's got very few rounds, or the least among the players that have qualified. But this calendar year, on fast and lightning Bermuda greens, your top putters have been Taylor Moore, Adam Schenk, Ricky, Patrick Cantley, Sam Burns, Russell Henley, Jordan Spieth, Wyndham Clark, Jon Rahm, and Tommy Fleetwood. And again, we'll see where Matt Fitzpatrick falls tomorrow when he is uploaded into the page view here at Fantasy National. I won't fight it. I'll just go to the DraftKings one since the pricing will be out as well. But there's an early look at your top putters on fast and lightning Bermuda greens. We remove those filters. We're going to look at both of the ball striking off the tee and, well, that's weird. I thought I was unchecking it. We're going to look at off the tee and approach. So in the past 36 rounds this calendar year, no filters, just flat out who's been the best. Starting with off the tee, your top off the tee performers this calendar year, the past 36 rounds. Scottie Scheffler, Patrick Cantley, Rory, Siwoo Kim, Corey Connors, Victor, Tommy Fleetwood, Lucas Glover, Tyrrell Hatton, Colin Morikawa, and Sung Jae. And your top strokes and approach players, Scottie Scheffler, Jon Rahm, Russell Henley, Lucas Glover, Colin Morikawa, Rory, Xander, Adam Schenk, Ricky Fowler, and Victor Hovland. So 2 big things to look at there. And yeah, we'll go ahead and just take a look at par 5s just because it was such a dominant force for the winners. Although I do have some hesitation in putting a lot of emphasis here, but just based on what we saw in the course breakdown tab here in Fantasy National, our top par 5 performers at East Lake the past 36 rounds: Scottie Scheffler, Ricky, Jordan Spieth, Jon Rahm, Patrick Cantley, Colin Morikawa, Siwoo Kim, Tom Kim, Wyndham Clark, and Tommy Fleetwood, the law offices of Kim and Kim. All right, so with that, we're going to move to the tournament history, or strokes gained total tab, if you will, here in Fantasy National, and then start segueing into Microsoft Excel. This is measured back all the way to 2018, so I don't want to spend too much time on this because we're going to cut this off at 2019. But you can see clearly there have been 2 standout performers at East Lake the past 5 years, Xander and Rory. Rory, your 2-time winner in that time frame, 2019 and 2022 last year, your defending champion. Xander has played extremely well just throughout all 5 years. A couple of runner-ups, nothing worse than a tied for 7th. That was 5 years ago, which we aren't going to be factoring in this week. Jon Rahm has played decent, a couple of top 5s, including a runner-up, but also has some middling performances. Again, T15, normally a very good finish, but with only 30 players, it's actually, middling. T12, Max Homa, first time he makes it to East Lake last year, he top 5s. Scheffler's been good. Victor been okay, I suppose. At the other end of the spectrum, Corey Connors has not played well. I'm blocking that view, so let's do it up here. Connors has not played well. Lucas Glover only 1 time. Sam Burns, surprisingly, has not played well in the 2 times he has come to East Lake. This is Bermuda. Patrick Cantley, a little misleading as he is he won in 2021. He played well last year. He had a very bad 2019 and 2018. So he's played East Lake much better as of late. Morikawa actually hasn't played it all that well either in his 3 tries to East Lake. So there's a quick look at total performance at East Lake. With that, we're going to segue to Microsoft Excel. No comparison course, of course, with only 30 players at East Lake, not going to be comparing that against full field courses on the PGA Tour. So instead, we're just going to be looking at an early look file, but I did gather the early look file because East Lake has been the traditional home of the Tour Championship. And the reason why we are going to be going only as far back as 2019. 2019 was the start of the staggered scoring system, where the the leader of the FedEx Cup standings arrives at Eastlake at -10. Second is at -8, -7, 6, 5, and so on down, where 26th through 30th is at even par to start the week. So essentially, Scotty Scheffler has a 10-shot lead over the players that are 26th, 27th, 28th, 29th, and 30th. I know off the top of my head, I believe it's Griot, I know Spieth and Straka are in there. I don't know who the other two are off the top of my head. I will have that info for you by the time the show comes out tomorrow. By the time we come out on live for the Data Dive show. But I don't have these standings memorized. I just know Scheffler 1, Rory 2, Rahm 3, and so on. But what you're looking at here is performance at Eastlake in the past 4 years, 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022. The average finish, and that is including the starting handicap. So as you can see, I need to sort it. I have it on alphabetical. I apologize, I didn't sort that. So let's sort this on finish. Smallest to largest. So Xander, in the 4 years he has been at Eastlake with the staggered scoring format, he's averaged a third place finish. Now that's not meaning he's started at third. He has just played very well. He has shot 49 under par in actual. That's not including his starting strokes. So hopefully I'm making a little bit of, I'm making that differentiation. The actual is what they have actually scored to par in the 4 years at Eastlake with the staggered format. The finish is with the starting strokes. So I just want to make that clear. And that's why you'll see these not really go in much order. You see Max Homa. He shot 15 under actual last year. Moved all the way up to 5th in the standings. You see Cantlay has averaged a 10th place finish, but he's only -10 actual in his 3 years there. That's how bad he was in 2019. You see Lucas Glover down here. He finished 29th his 1 year. He started it even, went +10 that year. This was 2019. It was difficult, so probably a little bit of an outlier, but you still have to consider it. You see Corey Connors. For as much as he's played Eastlake, he hasn't played it well. He's been even par for his 3 years, averaging a 25th place finish. So hopefully by tomorrow, I will have where their average start is. I'm hoping to have that. That'll be gathered from this massive amount of data that I just, again, haven't had time to go through today with the club championship that I was playing in. I participated in it. I don't think I can say I played golf. It kicked my ass. But I was out there swinging a golf club. So if we go through here, let's look at the players who have averaged. Let's see. I do need to take off a few players here because I did gather everybody that had played. Don't know if Poston made it. I know Brennan Todd didn't. Rose Tagala I know did not. So I can remove him. I know Glover did. Okay, so these are the players that have played in the staggered scoring format. So 20 players. If we go to the top 10s, which is the top third of the field, we'll see like off the tee, only one player negative, fairly important, 1.5. Approach, 1.5, only one player negative. Again, just emphasis on ball striking. Definitely emphasis on ball striking. Around the green, not at all. This is exactly 0. Putting, going to carry a little bit of weight, I imagine. Sepp Straka has really brought that average down, but he's the only one that's negative who's averaged a top 10 in the staggered scoring format. So looking at what I would say the main 3 strokes gained categories there, mainly the ball striking, but it does look like for the players who have played Eastlake at a premier level, putting has been pretty solid. Look at this. Distance. You got Max Homa, who was essentially field average last year, -0.3. Sepp Straka's 8.3 in the negative. But everybody else in the top 10 has been positive. So that's an encouraging sign. And majority of the players who have been bad, relatively speaking, at Eastlake are negative in distance. So it looks like distance is going to be something we want to focus on. Surprising to see that greens aren't really a whole lot. It's probably getting hurt here by Homa from last year. Yeah. In fact, I look at orange and I generally tend to think bad, but that's actually positive at 0.6. So greens, also something that we probably want to be focusing on a little bit as we move forward into our research tomorrow, going into the data dive tomorrow night. 2.4 there in greens. Good drives isn't going to be anything because the fairways really aren't anything. In fact, that's negative average for fairways gained. So we're definitely looking at distance, probably some greens, probably a little bit of greens. Scoring, just a quick look here. A little bit in the eagles, but not a whole lot. For the players who have averaged a top 10 with the staggered scoring format, birdies gained is 1.6. Bogeys avoided is 1.8. Interesting. No player negative in bogeys avoided either. That's averaged a top 10. Okay. Look, Xander, much more in the bogeys avoided. Now, Rory's been about the birdies gained. I have a working theory around that, considering he's been, the 2 times he has won, he's come from off the pace or come, from not being in first. So he's had to go low. Fairly close, but bogeys avoided does not have a negative in it for the players who have averaged a top 10. It's interesting to see. Par 3s, 4s, and 5s. Par 3s for the players who have averaged a top 10, 1.1. Par 4s, 2.3 high. The par 5s are going to be pretty high here, 1.2. Only one player negative there. Okay, well, look at that, 2.7. You can't see it, it's right off your screen. So the highest over here in the par 5s is 2.7 from Terrell Hatton. But you also have a 2.7 and a 2.5 over here in the par 3s. So that's why I didn't want to put a whole lot of emphasis into the par 5s, because there's only 2 of them. I would imagine the par 3s would carry a little bit more weight, but we saw last week at Olympia Fields, at least from 2020's BMW, that the par 5s really did matter. So we'll see as we go into the data dive tomorrow, look at some prior leaderboards, what we think about that. In terms of specifics, I'm just going to go to the par 4s. You got 4 in this range and 5 in 450 to 5, so this is a 0.8. Getting hurt quite a bit by Hatton. Otherwise, that's pretty strong. This is getting hurt by Sepp Straka. Otherwise, it's pretty strong. This is a 1.1. Okay. All right. And then finally, in terms of proximity, which is, again, interesting. We didn't have the proximity chart in Fantasy National. So if you'd like me to make that tomorrow, put it in the comments or reach out to me on social media. Just let me know. Because I really thought the proximity chart would have been in there since we have ShotLink. But proximity, 26. We got a negative here. Okay, some decent sized numbers there. Proximity could be it. Looking like 125 to 150, which actually would make some sense because there are several 400 to 450 par 4s and two 350 to 4 par 4. So, I mean, not a single player negative in 125 to 150. So as we go through the prior leaderboards tomorrow, perhaps we want to take a strong look at this proximity range here, see if that is garnering or leading to high leaderboard success. Same kind of with the 200 plus. Do have a few negatives, but they're pretty close to field average. But it is striking to see that not a single player is negative 125 to 150 who's averaged a top 10. It's pretty striking to see. But that's going to do it for the Data Dive show. A little bit shorter, but we only have 30 players to look at. And with no comparing to other courses, a little bit shorter show anyway. But again, that's going to do it for the Data Dive show this evening. Thanks to Joey for jumping in chat. Congratulations again on your successful weekend playing real golf and making the championship flight at our local Muni. I know it didn't go the way you wanted to today, but still a worthwhile shout out there. So thanks for jumping in chat. Thanks to everyone else out there who tunes in, watches, listens, supports the channel. I always appreciate it. Love doing what I do, looking at sports statistics, trying to win a little bit of money in the process. Hopefully we're going to be back on the right track for the final event of the PGA Tour season at East Lake. Quick reminder that my Kick link is also in the description. I will be starting to stream to Kick after the vacation in the middle of September, and I'm going to be doing a lot over there. So if you would like to see some different content or follow along as I do my intense research, but I'll be doing that over there. I'll be doing a lot more gaming and whatnot. So if you're interested in that, give me a follow over at Kick, and be on the lookout tomorrow for the research that I post to social media. I'll be looking at a lot of this data tomorrow and trying to find some patterns for you and some things to think about as you begin pondering some wagers and your lineups for your DFS contests. Thanks again for supporting the channel. For all of the wagers that you've made or that you made this past week for the BMW, for all of the DFS contests you entered this past week at the BMW, and until I see you tomorrow night for the Data Dive show, may all your bets be profitable.